Welcome back to Grateful Talks. This episode is a third episode, and we're here with Anthony Coscia of Coscia Guitars. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Jay. Great to be here. This is going to be fun.
This is awesome. We're gonna let everybody know that I have to let everybody know Anthony was gracious enough to say he would redo the podcast with me. We did one earlier today and had a little technical difficulties on my end, and I was looking at it and I thought, you know what, if we can do this once, we could do it again, and we can talk about the same stuff, maybe even get a little deeper into stuff. So
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
excited that you're here to talk with us.
And we're lucky because between the time we did it the first take and the time we're doing it now, it has been like one nonstop thunderstorm where like I couldn't hear the television on with it on full volume. It was so loud and it like only broke in like the last 5 minutes. So it's perfect.
Well, that's amazing. You and me both, we had drum tracking going on, so it was a thunderstorm on the toms and kick. That's awesome. Well, let's jump right into it and maybe tell us a little bit about your background and how you fell in love with the Grateful Dead, and also how the craftsmanship has kind of come into your life and where that happened.
Sure. Um, I think I was first exposed to the Dead, like a lot of people, was in probably my freshman year in college. I went to RIT and I was a fine arts major, photography major. And of course, I think my first exposure to the Dead at all was here in Barton Hall, because it was at the time
Oh,
probably the only widely circulated, truly great quality board tape out there. And it could have been a horrible show. It probably still would have gotten me hooked just because it was such a stellar recording.
yep.
So that was kind of my first introduction. Going back to high school, no one in my school listened to the Dead, so I had no knowledge of it at all. So I kind of came in fresh. And then first show was 1988 at SPAC. I think it was probably the first year they played SPAC again after being, I think, banned from there for a couple years. And then really from then on, right through college until, a year after college, I was seeing as many shows as I could while still managing to, go to classes and get by.
Just
And
enough,
that's
right?
just enough. Right. And then, it, and Jerry Band too. And, of course, I almost prefer going to see Jerry Band because I always thought it just seemed like he was happy. It was a more low key scene. It was just, it was like bliss.
That's his side project that he loved.
Yep.
Loved to be a part of. Well, that's super
Yeah.
cool. I love that you were seeing shows and at a pretty prime time. A lot of people would say. I know some people aren't the biggest fans of the 80s, but that's one of my favorite years. I
And, I was there. So, for me, it'd be easy to say that was a real peak for the Dead later in their career, just because I was there and I got to experience it. But, when I go back and listen to the history of things, I mean, obviously like 73, 74 are phenomenal, 77 phenomenal, but 89 seemed to be another,
oh my
a
gosh.
last real peak for the band. And
Yep.
fortunately that's when I saw the bulk of my shows. So,
Got a little bit of goosebumps here just thinking about it, even though I never got to see it. That's awesome. So you're listening to the Dead and venturing through life and doing photography stuff. Where does
yeah.
woodworking fit into that? How did that come about?
you know, there's people that are like makers that just always want to make stuff, and that was always me. So if I could make it versus buy it, I would try it. And same thing came for just working around the house, things like that. My motto was always, if it would cost me less to have someone do it and fix my mistakes than it would if I just tried it on my own, what have you got to lose? So
Yeah.
and it's funny because when I went to RIT, they have the School of the American Craftsman, which is a really good school. There's a woodworking program. They have a a pottery program. They have a glass blowing program. I took
Wow.
one class in all of college in woodworking, which was great, but it never dawned on me that would ultimately become something that I did. It was really later in life that I was in between careers in a recession, probably in 2001, when I got into, I think I took a job with a local contractor just to learn some stuff and keep busy, and ended up liking it, started the construction business, and was doing that up until, I mean, currently at least part-time. So I got a lot of my woodworking and cabinetry skills there. And then really the guitar aspect of it started 2000, and I think the first guitar I built was in probably 2005, and it was an unplayable guitar. I hadn't my musical history is pretty simple. I used to play piano and keyboards in from the time of like age 6 probably, and that was what I was like known for in school up until probably like grade 7. And then some
Nice.
other kid came along. He was much, much better than me. And it just like a good friend of mine. And ultimately I just like, yeah, there's no competing with this guy. And I think I just almost completely stopped playing, and picked up guitar, and I learned, GCD open chords on an acoustic, and played that for 20 years.
That's perfect. Well, that's all you need for 20 years, and then you can get better after
Yeah.
that.
So yeah, I mean, to make a long story short, when I started getting into this, the guitar end of things, I missed being involved with the Grateful Dead community. I missed playing guitar and really wanted to learn guitar, and I needed a guitar.
Yeah.
So, rather than go out and buy a guitar, I figured, well, I might as well start by making a wolf for myself because, why not? It seems like a good project to do. So, I built the guitar so I'd have a guitar to go take to play, do some lessons and things. So you can see, I got it back there on the wall, and
That's it.
it's
Oh, very cool.
it's a good replica. It's got everything it needs to have. It's all to scale and everything. And then the hobby just kind of grows from there. You start needing to sell a few to afford to build another for yourself. And then people are approaching you, and before you know it, wow, this is now a business. And so it wasn't necessarily a controlled burn or anything like that. It just kind of, grew organically, and then people start talking, and you start getting calls. So, and then next thing you know, you're here where I'm on that cusp of now really being 100% full-time, building guitars and speaker cabinets for that matter.
Wow. So 2005, you build your first unplayable guitar, as you describe it. I'm sure with a few tweaks, you might be able to make it playable. Who knows? But
yeah, I had a leftover piece of mahogany from the deck I built, and I was like, oh, mahogany, I could make a neck out of this. And I made it. It looked kind of cool. At least it did to me at the time. Until the tension of the strings broke the set neck off.
Oh no. Got to use Type-On Pro.
Yeah. Well, I thought I was being smart because, back then there wasn't exactly a lot of stuff on the internet. So I used epoxy, and the thing, it lasted like a week, and it ended up in the scrap heap. I think I probably cut it up and used it to make, a piece of furniture or something like that.
Wow. Oh my gosh. So the internet is actually an interesting thing to bring up here because
Sure.
to me, I was born in 96. So I've grown up first couple years of my life hearing dial-up noises, and that's it. I've been connected my whole life. You have a slightly different perspective on that, but you are clearly a very active member of online communities and seem to be a great participant in that. So what has inspired you to go for research online, and when did that kind of come about for you in terms of building?
Well, before I built Wolf, I hadn't really been involved with any of these online communities because I think the last time I remember in any online community was like rec.music.fish back towards the end of college. And, I don't even know what PCs were like. I didn't even have a PC when I was in college.
.fish.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
That's
I think the first Grateful Dead group I was ever part of was Are You Kind, which that was probably in my research to build the Wolf. I started going there, and obviously phenomenal resource there.
Yeah.
So between that and tapping into some of the folks on there that were already doing this kind of thing, I started to learn more and more, and then it kind of takes off. And then it turns out that there's the guy right behind you, a year behind you, who then you're helping out, and then he's helping out the next guy. So, or gal. And it's, it's kind of cool. It's a great community. And that was, I think, what was appealing to me as the music and all that was, when you're young and you're touring around with the Dead and you're living that life, that's a big part of your life. And then you grow up, you get a job, you get a mortgage, you get married, you have kids,
Separate.
and that's all great stuff. Yeah. But you definitely don't have time for all the things you used to love. And then you get older and your kids grow up and you're like, oh, I can reboot this thing.
You're living proof of it right here. That's awesome. Well, I love, let's talk about your guitars because you have described in the previous podcast, that you're a man who likes to have creative control over your builds. And that's kind of a distinguishing factor with your guitars. You sell very unique models that you've come up with, and they obviously have inspirations from other sources, but it's
Yeah,
something that's distinctively you. And tell us a little bit about that and how your models have come to be and where you see them going in the future.
sure. Well, the first real guitar I built was the Wolf, and for a deadhead, that's kind of like something that I've always wanted to have. And
Pinnacle,
I don't
yeah.
really, I don't have much desire to play it in front of people. I have absolutely no issue with anyone that wants to have a replica and play it, and I think it's a wonderful thing. For me, I love having it. I love seeing it on my wall.
It's great.
But from the perspective of an artist or someone that makes things, um, at the end of the day, it's better to look at something and say, hey, this was my design and my creation and my artwork versus me being a really good at imitating someone else's.
Yeah.
So again, nothing against people that do that. It's a real talent. I mean, trust me, just because you're copying somebody else's guitar doesn't make making a Wolf or a Tiger easy. It is not
Yes.
easy. But I like to know that I got my own place in the world, even if it's this big. And so, but
You
the
have
but
your
the
little
inspiration,
corner.
obviously, it's pretty clear if you look at like one of the Bella guitars. Anyone who looks at any of these guitars knows that, like,
Gorgeous.
the horns are kind of like Wolf, the body is kind of like an Ibanez musician. It clearly has its cues from those things. I
Yeah.
always love the brass pickup plates or metal plates, and I kind of carry that through. But beyond that, I'd rather. I'd rather kind of work within the that inspiration and kind of take it from there.
God, it's awesome. I
Yeah,
just love what you're doing. And when you see your guitars on social media, anytime I see a post of a freshly finished Coscia guitar, I'm like, oh, I want to have that on stage with me. They look
yeah,
like they're balanced well, and from what I hear, everybody just loves the way that they hang. And tell us a little bit about your theories
yeah.
on weight and balance of guitars, because I heard you telling some stuff earlier.
Yeah, well, when I built the Wolf, it's a beautiful guitar, but it wasn't for me because I'm a 5'8" guy, and it's a long guitar. I mean, it's 40 and 7/8 inches long or something like that. So while it balances really well, and your left hand falls exactly where it should fall for playing Jerry stuff, it was a strain for me playing all the way out here at the first fret.
Yeah.
And so, when I designed the first guitar, the Bella, it was, I wanted to have it still feel the same in terms of balance, but I basically shifted everything inwards.
Very
So,
cool.
the trade-off is you lose about 1 or 2 frets in terms of real ease of playability, but the gain is that it's a much more comfortable guitar for me. I can trim off some weight by not needing a body that's quite as long to keep it all kind of balanced out.
Yeah.
And it just ends up being comfortable for me. And at the end of the day, most of the guitars I'm building I build what's comfortable for me, and I hope that other people it's comfortable for them too. It's a personal thing. You can build a guitar for someone. In fact, I built a guitar for a client, and I'll mention his name, Jed Goldstein, because some of you guys know him. And he had the guitar for a week, and he called me back and said, I'd like to try it a bit longer, if that's okay. And I said, sure. 3 weeks later, he calls me up. He says, you know what? It's just not for me. Something just doesn't feel quite right. Maybe the neck shape isn't for me. I'm like, all right, go ahead. I'll take it back. That's fine. Not a problem. I get a call back like a day later. Yeah, my buddy in my band really likes the guitar, so he's going to buy it from me.
There you
And
go.
flash forward 2.5 years, Jed buys another of almost the exact same guitar from me.
Oh my gosh.
Slightly different neck shape, but it's a real personal thing. And some people are going to love a chunky neck. Some want a really thin neck.
Yeah.
Some things are, yeah. But I tend to build everything by feel. And if it feels good to me, I hope it feels good to someone else.
That's awesome. So is there anything that you go in thinking ahead of time when you build a guitar? Is it just, I'm going to churn out 3 and they're going to be this random set? Or is there, I don't know exactly what's going into the thought process there when you design?
Well, for me, when you're starting out, you reach a point where if you're trying to make somewhat of a living off of this, you have to do certain things. There's certain economies of scale. To build one guitar, if it takes you 45 minutes to set up the tooling to do one step, but it only takes 5 minutes to do that step, well, you might as well do 3 or 4 or 5 at a time. And otherwise you're just, you're throwing money away.
Yeah.
So I try to build batches that I'm trying to still fine tune what that perfect size batch is. Like 3 was great, 6 was pushing it.
Okay.
So to me, doing a run of 4 or 5 guitars at a stint is great. And I kind of start by when you're not taking custom orders and you're building them the way you like them, it's nice because I can go out and find what wood is available that I like. And then I
Oh,
get this
cool.
huge stack of wood and I'll pre-cut, 20 different sets of various woods for tops and backs and things like that. And then I'll mix and match them. I'll sit at a big table with all this wood and go, well, let's see, the zebra wood here looks good with this for the veneer layers and this for the core. And at the end, I end up with 5 sets.
That's
So
awesome.
even though they're all the same build within that Bella line anyway,
Yeah.
every one of them is unique. And then, you add on top of that I have a choice of whether I want to do, brass or aluminum hardware, covered, uncovered pickups. Do I want to do an etched plate or not do an etched plate?
Yeah.
So they're really, I think of all the guitars I've built, only 2 of them have truly been identical, I think, or near identical. Um,
Wow.
and those are, I think, the ones that were Wangy with Purple Heart. Those, it's funny. Sometimes you expect to really not like something. Like I'm putting it together, like, yeah, it looks all right. I wouldn't play it, and then it turns out to be your favorite.
That's amazing. So, do
So,
you see yourself producing more of kind of as you tweak these guitars more and more and build more for people and get feedback from players and say, hey, maybe you could do this on the next build, and you consider that feedback? Do you see yourself kind of settling on like this is Bella and this is what you get with Bella, or is it always going to be a little bit of that kind of you can have this
yeah,
custom engraving, or how does that
yeah.
work?
I know that I'm going to have to do more and more of that. I mean, that's just a function of the business, and I am. In this batch of 5 I've got behind me that are in the works, 2 of them were midway through the build, substantially customized. One only in terms of wiring and pickup configuration. One of them I've added, multiple inlays. I've added, a Fishman built-in MIDI system.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh. The
and
triple
in fact,
play?
that one, which, yeah, it's a triple play, but now triple play, they don't make a MIDI system that you can build into a guitar. So I had the owner go out and buy a Godin that had an OEM built-in Fishman.
Oh
And
my
we,
gosh.
we cannibalized the Godin and then took all the parts out and we're going to build that in. And then I told him, I was like, if this ever breaks, like if the system ever dies, you're SOL. So you might want to buy another Godin. Well, sure enough, now I've got 2 parted out Godins sitting in the shop that
That's
so
insane.
that's a cool Godin kind of Telecaster type guitar.
Oh my gosh.
I've got 2 gutted out ones that we're trying to figure out how to rebuild them.
Phew, you could probably put some Squire pickups in those and bring them back to
Oh,
life.
you can do anything you want. It's a nice guitar. I've never been a big Telly fan, so I don't necessarily have the inspiration to come up with something for it. But if anyone likes that Telly kind of shape, it's a cool guitar. I mean, it's
Oh, that's
well,
awesome.
you know, and they're cheap. It's gutted them.
That's awesome. I have to ask you about one more of your guitar models. I think
Yeah,
the way I actually heard of you was probably through seeing Brendan Connolly's videos, his amazing
yeah.
Bob Weir style videos, and seeing the guitars that he played. I was always thinking, "Oh my gosh, who's doing that work? That's fantastic!" And turns out it was you. So that's clearly a little bit of a different model, but it seems like a similar body shape. How did that come to be?
Sure. So that's a long story. That started in probably 2016. Now the Bella was my main guitar. I never thought I'd ever stray from kind of the Jerry guitars.
Yeah.
But in 2000, maybe 2015, a buddy of mine said, you really should make a guitar. Try to get it into the hands of someone well known. And I was like, well, who do you think I should reach out to? He's like, well, I'm in New York next week and I got tickets. We'll go see Mo at the Cap. So like, all right. He goes, well, you should see if Al Schneer wants to play one of your guitars. So I said, all right, do you know Al Schneer? And he goes, no, but when you were at my wedding in 92, Jay Blakesberg photographed my wedding because my roommate was Jay Blakesberg's assistant.
Oh
So
my
we
god.
go to the show. He introduces me to Jake Blakesberg. We run the idea by him. He goes behind stage, talks to Al, and then a week later, I'm on the phone with Al trying to, make him a guitar for him to play. Um,
Yes.
it was a cool experience, but not
not necessarily what I bargained for, because I had all these ideas of like maintaining creative control like I like to
Yeah,
do,
yeah.
and making one of my guitars that's somewhat ornate.
I
And no,
present to you your next
that's it.
tool.
That's it. Your signature guitar. Well,
Yes.
the long and short of this, the guy plays either an SG or a gold top Les Paul or a LP Junior or whatever he plays. The most basic,
bare bones, super
yeah,
stripped
really
down.
bare bones. So every idea I'd throw out, he goes, "Yeah, I really like that idea. Only get rid of the idea."
So much for all the cool stuff you're gonna add.
So
cool.
I
have it here. I'll show it to you only because it leads into the next part of this journey.
Yeah, why do you have it there?
Oh, could it be that we spoke about it 4 hours ago?
I wonder if I know this story already, but I still want to hear it.
So,
oh my!
So this was the guitar.
Gorgeous.
It's real thin. It's like 1 3/8 inches. It's really was.
Oh, that's perfect.
Knowing that he was an SG guy, I kind of used the SG as the template for balance and general layout. It's wired just like an SG, but when you look closely at it, I mean, really, this guitar is what became Brendan's guitar. It's a short scale, lightweight. By short scale, I mean a Gibson scale that I then modified to make it more of a Bobby guitar because, I figured I might as well make something along those lines. And I always liked the all of Bob's Ibanez's were great guitars. The one I probably liked the most, which wasn't necessarily a Bobby guitar, but in that realm, was the 2617. It was like Bob's blonde kind of vine guitar, but the horns were a little more protruding. So and a lot of those Ibanez guitars had that cool German carve all around the edge, which I love that. So that was really the inspiration for the next guitar. So then I built one for Brendan and sold him that one. And then about a year later, he said, "Yeah, I want another one, but I want a dark one. I want the vine and all that." And that guitar just kind of became the Bobby model, which awesome. It doesn't have a name, but I think we've settled on a name. Is going to be the 587s or the 577 or I already forgotten. Yeah, the 577 BW for the May 77 Bob Weir. Because
I love that. You got to along with Cowboy.
Yeah, you know what? I won't steal too much.
Yeah,
but this is this is like the blonde version of what Brendan plays. So,
gosh, that's gorgeous.
Different vine things like that, and it's got a lot of the same hardware. Yeah. These are these great. I love these Schaller hardtails are great because they have these great adjustments for intonation and for string spacing, which I really like. I mean, this thing has roller saddles that go up to like a 1/8 of an inch play left or right, so you can really dial it in exactly the way you like it.
Well, you hate it when you see like a Telly with a vintage style bridge and you have about 6 total adjustments for your saddle height.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I guess if this is how they did it, that's supposed to be good enough, but I prefer the roller saddles for sure.
But when I started to make that guitar, I was trying to figure out what wood to use for it. And when I was making the one for Al, I know that he likes mahogany, and he threw out the idea of, hey, what about doing some Carina? Because he's a big Gibson guy. And I'm like, all right, let's just go find some Carina at the my local supplier. And I go in and talk to them. They're like, oh yeah, walk this way. We have 500 board feet, of this stuff, nice 2-inch thick material that we bought off of Gibson at the end of one of their reissue runs.
Oh my gosh.
So I bought a ton of this stuff, which was nice, clean, good looking, Limba, which is the same as, Carina. I think Carina is like a branded name for Limba, which it's a really lightweight, wood that's just it's very similar to mahogany, maybe a hair on the brighter side, but it's real lightweight. Like that guitar is under 7 pounds or right around 7 pounds. Which, to me in the world of the people that we deal with, 7 pounds is like, lifting up a feather. It's
that's
nothing.
Beautiful. If you can find something under 8, that's a win in my book.
That's it. And you know, my bellows are generally 814, 815 around there, depending on the woods used in them. Compared to the wolf, which is, you know, certainly 10 plus, and tiger, which is 12 plus. So, you know, it seems like under 9, it was really comfortable for me.
Yeah.
But then you pick up this guitar and it's like, it's almost too light, which kind of brings us full circle back to the balance thing. So now segueing from that guitar, which I had done for Brendan and a handful of other people now, I had one that I just totally botched, one of my real early ones that was mahogany. And I think I set the neck angle wrong. So it was really set up a little bit more like a straight neck guitar than an angled, you know, Gibson guitar. So of course, here comes quarantine and you got nothing to do. I'm not getting parts from anybody. And I say, well, I'll see what I can do with this guitar. And then around that same time, I had been working with Jason Ferguson on a project for another client who wanted to kind of get a Travis Bean kind of sound, but out of a Walker guitar. And, cool. You know, Jason had designed these great TB500 type pickups that he had a guy out in California wind up for him. And, you know, so we kind of collaborated on that. We ended up with this great, cool looking Walker guitar with these, you know, glaring white rectangle single coils in them.
That's awesome.
It sounded awesome. And then the moment I started playing that guitar, I'm like, oh shit, I gotta come out with a white guitar. And
gotta pay tribute to the Bean somehow.
That's it. So then we get to this guitar, which the irony of all this, the funny thing is this guitar is, you know, a couple months old. It's a sloppily made guitar that, you know, I've kind of made into a great prototype. But the prototype worked out really well. But if you look at this guitar compared to the first one from 2015, I mean, at their core, they're very similar guitars.
God, they look like pieces of candy almost.
Yeah. Well, I never thought, I mean, Bean was always one of my favorite sounding guitars, but never one of my favorite looking guitars. And but
it's kind of out there.
So, you know, with this, I feel like, you know, I got the control layout to where it's similar. You know, I did them with the 3 switches for the pickups versus a 5-way blade, so you can kind of do any combination you want.
Oh, I just now noticed that. Yeah. I actually, wow. Oh, that's beautiful.
And it's a love-hate thing. You know, it takes a while to get used to it.
But I'm so used to seeing like coil switches that I don't even think when I see 3 switches on a guitar anymore. That's crazy.
Right. And there's no coils, obviously, because it's all single coils.
Exactly.
And, you know, it's got an oboe, but it's a passive system, so you can leave your guitar plugged in all you want.
Yes. No dead batteries in the morning.
No. But I think in the future, I'm going to get a volume pot that's like a stacked pot, like a 10K, 250K or something, so that I can do the option of a buffer on off and still have the right volume pot in there. But
that's awesome.
This is the guitar now when I walk by it, I pick up the most, because it's just like, oh, I just pick it up and
it doesn't feel like any effort. You can
you can fling it around.
A Jello body.
And you know, it's a Gibson scale guitar, and again, all the way back to balance again. You know, I'd love to make in the final version, which I'll start in a month or so. I'm still up in the air about whether I keep it a Gibson scale guitar or do 25.5. Cool. It's just that it's such a light guitar that it's just a tad on the neck heavy side now. So I have to counterbalance it or use a slightly heavier wood to make it balance right.
If you're going to lengthen that.
Yeah. So now if I lengthen this an inch, you know, am I now adding to that issue? So I'm going to get that resolved in the next, couple weeks. And then, the next step is I am working on an aluminum neck someday. But again, if that really, I'm not necessarily looking to completely recreate a Bean. I like the look and feel. It kind of inspires me to have it look kind of like it, but not be it. So anyway,
aluminum neck at all in the future? Are you?
Yeah, I got a guy working on that now. That we're trying to nail down some dates to kind of try to put a prototype together for it.
Oh my!
That's definitely like an investment. You don't just whip out one aluminum neck. It's gonna take you forever to do the first one, and then you might as well make 15 or 20 of them because you're going to be you're not going to do this just on a whim. So we'll see. I mean, right now I really like the lightweight one with the wood neck. I think it sounds great.
Oh yeah.
And again, if it inspires you to play well because you like the way it looks, then you're kind of splitting some hairs if you want it to sound a certain way. I think most people are just going to sound good because it feels comfortable to them.
But
So
don't you think that if you painted that one blue, it would sound just a little bit different?
yeah. Well, yeah. So what I'll do is on the future one, the top will always be a gloss white. I mean that nothing will change on this. I will on the for the back portion. So there's white binding, the whole back and the neck. The whole neck will be. I'm trying to do a gray, like almost like a Cape Cod gray.
Oh yeah.
Patina or stain. So you get all the wood grain, but it's gray like aluminum.
Oh, that's nice.
So it'll look sharp. I mean, I never thought I'd get excited about a painted guitar because I'm usually all about cool woods, but that's all I think about now.
That's awesome. It's all I've been thinking about ever since I saw it grace my Instagram feed. That's drop dead gorgeous. So you're building kitchen cabinets at one point, and now you build guitar cabinets. How did that happen?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that was an easy transition. I mean, if you know cabinet construction, then looking at an HT style cabinet, it's not rocket science. Science if you have the right tools and the right skill set. It's really kind of like it's a commodity. It takes a skilled person to make them and the right equipment to make them. But once you know how to make them, it's not like it's overly creative stuff, but you're filling a need. And it was never really my desire to be a speaker cabinet maker as an income. It was more of, hey, every time someone needs them, there are either too many of them or there are none of them. So
it's a weird market.
Yep. So why not, when you've got when there's a lull in the market and people are asking and no one has them, well, that's the time I'll do a small batch of cabinets. I'm not looking to compete with other, there's enough need for me to make a couple batches a year and everyone, the other people to make their batches. And there's some great other cabinets out there. But it started out as almost my introduction to people that have bought my guitars. I think a lot of the people that have bought guitars from me ended up buying them because I'd drive 3 hours, deliver them a 1x12, which is like a losing proposition. Oh, but hey, while I'm here,
made it worth it. Yeah. Good
but
job.
I got 3 guitars on the back of the car.
Great.
If you want to look,
I'll give you a special deal today only.
That's it. So it's like
awesome.
you feel weird when you're meeting a client somewhere on the Jersey Turnpike, opening up the back of your hatchback and like putting speaker cabinets. I feel like I'm the kid on the Merritt Parkway or something.
Anthony, we did that. Do you remember Mandolin Brothers in Staten Island? Did you ever buy guitars there? Or
no, I know the name, but I don't really know them at all.
Just a brief funny story about that is they shipped my family had ordered a guitar and another guy had ordered a guitar, and he was kind of near New Jersey. I think he was southern New Jersey, and they shipped him our guitar and shipped us his guitar. And so we had to drive in New Jersey and meet up, and it was just right off the Jersey Turnpike. And
what exit? What exit?
I can't remember. I was too young, but I had to ask my dad. Is it possible to maybe give us some kind of tour of your workshop? Is that something that's accessible?
I can try and do that now. It's let's just see here.
There we go.
All right, here we are in the shop, which, right now the shop is essentially a 2-car garage that hasn't seen a car in 20 years. But, I'm in speaker mode, as you can tell. So for all you guys that are waiting for your cabinets, all the 1x12s are stacked with shipping labels and kind of ready to go.
Oh, man.
It's part of the reason that, we got our house on the market. I'm looking for a bigger shop because, when you go into the mode of like making speaker cabinets, like right now, this is wide open. 2 days ago, it was floor to ceiling boxes and speakers, and it's just mayhem. And you can't do any other work. You can't work on guitars while you're doing speakers and such.
Yeah.
And I started the kind of tools I use in the construction business are totally different than what you use in when you're doing guitars. So I've been retooling, but even so, some of these things, even though they're nice, they're not really at the level where I can do things at the speed I need to do them and the accuracy I need to do them. So when I move and I get my bigger shop this year, we'll kind of be able to, scale things up. But I got some stuff laying around. Like, it's okay. If I go too far, we lose the signal. But I had a neck over there. I was going to show you that, every now and then you screw something up. we'll just come back to this and I'll walk downstairs. But
That's
when
perfect.
when you're kind of experimenting with stuff, I had a neck that I had spent, 2 or 3 days kind of getting it prepped. And then you get through all the hard part. You spend 16 hours working on something, and then you decide to try a new jig out, and you screw up and you put a gouge in the side of it. And it's happened, and you get over
That
it.
hurts.
But meanwhile, I've got a really nice neck there that's destined to become a mandolin neck, because I think I can salvage it and shave it down a bit and still get something out of it. So
That's perfect.
now I can have a mandolin.
I'll take any of your scrap guitars that had to be shrunk, if you know.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much for giving us a
Yeah.
shop tour. I'm sorry about the connection loss, but that's pretty cool
all right.
that you're working out of your garage. So, how was the acquisition of those tool sets for you? You mentioned that the construction tools are different from lutherie tools. How does that kind of work?
Sure. I mean, anyone can make a guitar with rudimentary tools. I mean, Stradivarius didn't have routers and table saws and things like
Sure.
that. So when you start out, you can use regular power tools, hand tools, but there are certain things that just you can't do in a small shop. For example, if you're making a hippie sandwich guitar that's got all these veneer layers, I purchase a lot of veneer because it's time saving over having to resaw all my own veneer, but it's also limiting because you can't always find the kind you want when you want it. So for that you got to get a much bigger, more powerful bandsaw. When you want to run wood through a planer, but you try to run quilted maple through a planer, it just tears the crap out of it. So now you need a wide belt sander to do that stuff. Well, you get one of those, and now it's not big enough, and it just
Oh my gosh.
it escalates quickly. For me, it's about having better equipment, but more important, I think, is having more space so that you can kind of set up predefined workstations for things. If I have to take a 20-minute break for every step I do because I got to repurpose that same space for the next step, that's just time that isn't used well. So
You could have spent elsewhere. Wow.
yeah, so I'm excited about it because it's like the next phase in my life with this stuff, and I'm loving working in the shop every day. But it'd be nice to know that it was just set up a little bit more properly.
Optimized. Well, that's super cool, and I wish you the best of luck in your search for a new house and workshop. That's kind of a big thing to be settling on, thinking about a long-term spot to start working in. So you got to find the right place.
Yeah. Well, listen, I'm 52 now. My kids are grown up, so it's just my wife and I, and it's like, all right, we live on a big place. We got 19 acres of land, and we love it here, but it's a lot of work, and I'd rather have my work be here, and then when I'm done doing this, I can actually we can relax at night versus me, feeling like I got to go in the shop because I didn't get enough done,
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's talk a little bit about the link between us, which is the Grateful Dead musician discussion forum. First of all, I want to give a shout out to Mark Munzer, who I've never talked to personally. I think I messaged him maybe once or twice via Messenger, but that's the extent of contact I've had with him. And he's a cool admin because he just creates this beautiful platform, and so many people now can join. And it's like Are You Kind in a way, but it's, to me, the Facebook platform allows for a new sort of form of communication because you have a face and a profile, and it's not just sort of that anonymous 90s looking internet forum like with signatures and stuff on all your posts. That's a cool thing, and that's some people's style, but for me, I've always enjoyed having a selection of folks that I get to talk to on a regular basis.
Sure.
So what kind of brought you to that forum? When did you join, and what got you involved?
Well, Are You Kind was, in the 2012 or something like that, 13. And then, like all good things, I guess they sort of come to an end or certainly change. And then Facebook was, I don't know, a while back, but not terribly long ago. But, I think, if you think about when you were younger, and I'm sure this is true for every generation, for me, it may have been with the Dead. For somebody else, it may be Fish. For somebody else, it may be some newer band where, you're going and seeing them all the time, but that's like your extended family. And it used to be that, like, if I drove cross country, it doesn't matter what town I'm in, I would know someone there. Or
So
if I
cool.
went to a show somewhere, you'd see someone go, yeah, I remember you. You know, I helped you swap out the engine on your bus on the side of I-90 and, you know,
Beautiful.
wherever.
Yeah.
You know, so that disappears quickly when you get older and you stop doing that. And then all of a sudden Facebook comes up and now you have this community again where you can reconnect with all these same people. And if they're not the same people, they're still the same people, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So you got this great community, and the you know the Facebook, the Grateful Dead Musicians Forums. It's a great forum. I use it as a member, as a contributor, as a a student more than anything else. I don't like to use it at all as a platform to sell anything. There are so many great resources, whether it's Brad Sarno or Rick Turner or Jason Ferguson. There's just so much out there, and you can tell that like it makes you feel normal. Like, oh, I'm not the only guy who's spending my nights up thinking about this stuff.
I'm not just the one weirdo in the world. There's other
That's
people
it.
that draw wall of sound cabinets at night
Yeah.
too.
And I can't speak for everyone, but I'm really protective of that because I spend enough time there. I do get business from there, whether it's directly or indirectly. And I have a lot of friends on there. So you don't want to see it get tarnished or kind of, fall apart. And we've seen that happen, before.
Yep, exactly.
And, to me, 9 out of 10 times, it's just because, we all are passionate about the stuff and we all have opinions, but yeah, sometimes people just need to realize that you can have a differing opinion. You don't have to have the last word. And
Yeah.
you can actually discuss things without having to argue about things.
Yeah.
So, and that is frustrating at times because it is overall a phenomenal environment and just so many great people. But then you get one little bad vibe in there. It's like, here we go again.
Yeah,
So-
every once in a while, and it's just if people can, as Bobby says, take a step back. That's all
That's
you
it.
gotta do. Take a
That's
step
it.
back, and another
Sometimes-
step back.
Yep. It's okay to disagree every now and then and just decide to keep it to yourself because,
Yeah.
Don't take the bait.
Yeah, the bait is out there and it's everywhere, and
Yes.
we see it constantly. But I think having that sort of Zen ability, whatever it may be, and sometimes it's
Right.
hard. It's hard not to say something, but it's I like that. I think it's pretty remarkable though, considering we have a group of over 3,000 members now. And everybody just kind of they do their thing and they share
Yeah.
their posts and playing and questions and discussions, and
Yeah.
it there's no rules because we all kind of have our hearts in the same place. So I think that's beautiful. That's
Yes.
how I'd like to keep it.
Yeah, this will go on for a long time. As long as there is a Facebook, or even if there isn't, there'll be another venue where we can continue to do this. And you just got to keep it as positive as you can. Because I for one, it's not an insignificant part of my life being involved with that community. So
I describe it to my friends and relatives as the last safe haven on Facebook for me. That's my description. But it's a nice place to be able to go somewhere and, as you said, realize you're not alone. Have people
Right.
that are smart like yourself and like Jason and Billy and all these folk, John, Patsy Stewart, that we all the folks that we've talked to. It's so cool that they all have a specialty of some kind and that their hearts have driven them to learn about something, no matter how out there it may be, which is awesome.
Yep.
Oh,
We were
man.
talking earlier about how Jason will post a photograph from everyone's got their thing. So for him,
Yeah.
it's early Dead stuff, and there's pictures there that just blow my mind at things you don't pick up on, and then you look closer and like, oh my god, I can't believe he was doing this or playing that or
Yeah.
or I like being in the 80s and going to a show and he wore shorts and he wasn't he wasn't wearing his usual this, and it's like, oh my god, we're nuts.
This was the third time in a row he wore that red T-shirt.
Yeah. But meanwhile, at the same time, I'm spending my nights up like running calculations on what it's going to cost me to recreate the wall of sound when Peter Shapiro Peter Shapiro calls me up and says, I want to build a wall at the Capitol Theater as the
That
backstop.
needs to happen.
So
it really does.
That's my bucket list project. Trust me, I know how many storage units I need. I know how many porta potties I need for the volunteers. I got it all figured out.
Have you already shopped on Zillow for houses or rental apartments you could get while you're living there to build? Man, that's awesome.
I just need a big barn.
So that is, that's obviously sounds like a dream project, but that, in all seriousness, would be a serious project if somebody gave you the go-ahead. You'd do it.
I mean, I only say it half kiddingly because I literally have spent hours at night, doing the math on what it would take to pull it off. And, we certainly have all the resources out there between Rick Turner and all these other guys who could help us recreate this thing.
Oh my gosh.
I'd be thrilled even if it was just a facade, because all I want to do is stand in front of it just to get a sense of scale to see what it would have felt like to play in that environment. To have the thing live would be, that would be
I
unreal.
can't even imagine with all the JBLs, actual real JBLs. You need to get JBL. My roommate and I were talking about that earlier. Get JBL to open up and do a limited run of 600 E120s.
That's
OEM.
it. That's it.
Oh man.
I don't think it's that far-fetched, but if they don't want to do it, I know how to make a JBL looking speaker out of paper mache and spray paint. So
paint. I ordered the silver spray paint the other day. I'm going to do some little replica stuff. So we'll start there and upgrade from there. What do you think it is about the Wall of Sound? Obviously, our eyes are attracted to these beautiful silver dust caps for some wonderful reason. I don't know what it is, but we see these speakers and we see these cabinets, and it's so iconic. And to me, it's the level of importance as staring at something like the pyramids of Giza. You're seeing this beautiful part of history that we never actually got to hear. We have no idea what it sounds like, and you have people probably, as you said earlier, maybe 5% of the Grateful Dead musician discussion forum was catching the early shows and actually got to see and hear the Wall of Sound. So what do you think kind of causes that obsession?
I mean, there's certainly a mystique about it. I mean, clearly, if you've listened to any shows from that era, they're all, I don't know how many bad shows were there in 73, 74, they're just, so when you add that to Wolf coming about, and now this massive sound system that nothing ever existed even remotely like it, and frankly, even though you could say that certainly modern day systems are far superior, when was the last time you saw someone take that much of a chance and do something that beyond the scope of normalcy? So it's awe-inspiring, and I just think it's something that should be preserved somehow. Whether it's real or fake doesn't matter, but somewhere I would travel across country for the opportunity to stand in front of the wall just to do it. So why not build it? If you build it, they will come.
I would love that. I want to volunteer and stack up the speakers as high as we can get them. I'll climb up to the top of the scaffolding if I need to. We'll get Big Steve involved. Get Steve Parrish to come over too. Oh man, that would
be like a crowning achievement for me to be able to do a project like that. It's I think we had talked earlier. Like everyone's got stories from the road and how they came to where they are, and what that was the greatest thing about following the Dead around outside of the music was just the people you meet, the places you go that you might not have gone. And I remember in I thinking it was 1990, driving to I'm in college at the time. And we had just, I think, come home from some shows somewhere. And everyone's like, oh, let's go to Hartford. Now, Hartford is 6 hours away from where I was in school. So we all load in the car and we drive to Hartford. We're about an hour outside of Hartford in this just torrential downpour. And we get caught up in a high-speed police chase. Not us, just, it's one of those things. I'm in the left lane. I look in my rearview mirror. I see lights like a mile away. I go to get out of the lane. I look up and the car hits me. And the cops told me he was going 100 miles an hour when he hit me. And, we fortunately, we're all fine. It's now 2:00 in the morning. We're in the state trooper's barrack. Car's totaled. And I get to call my parents and say, hey, first of all, I'm okay. Second of all, I'm in Hartford, not Rochester. Third of all, the car's destroyed. But I'm going to the show tomorrow,
Yes.
and I got a ride home. So
That's
we'll
what
talk.
matters. Oh wow, I'll update you.
Yeah.
Wow.
So flash forward, 30 something years, and now I've been spent the last 30 something years trying to find a way to tell my parents that, see, this all was for a purpose. And see, it got me right where I am now.
Look at where you are right now. That's beautiful. Well,
So see, it wasn't wasted.
that's awesome. I think that really speaks to the community of folks that we live in, that
Yep.
they're all so dedicated, truly, pun intended and no pun intended. Yet people who like the Dead are obsessed and are going to do anything they can to see a show or whatever that takes,
Right.
and follow their passion. So I
Right.
love that we're all out here kind of doing the same thing.
But what other community could you do that in? You're 6 hours away from home. You have no ride, and you don't even think for a second, I'm not going to find a way home. Where does that exist anymore?
Deadheads are some remarkable people.
Yeah.
Well, man, I can't thank you enough for talking with us today.
Oh, this was great.
This was amazing. I hope that we can get you back on. I really want to have another workshop tour.
Once the new shop is done, we'll do it again. That would be fun.
That's going to be awesome, and I expect that you get an extra tall ceiling in there so you can fit
Yes.
really tall speaker cabs, and then you can build guitars and cabs at the same time.
That's it. That's the goal.
Well, man, thank you so much for sharing your passion with us, and we'll talk to you on another episode, I'm sure.
Cool. Thanks, Jay.
Cheers, Anthony.
All right. Later.